Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast. It's me, Jordan Shannon, as always. And as always, I'm joined with Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
I'm all right, Jordan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I've cooled down a little bit. I'm not as red as I was a couple of days ago, but I'm back in the UK, which is always good to be back home.
That's very good. I'm
Bit, bit,
sure. I'm sure you miss the cooler temperature.
yeah, I've had to, yeah, a little bit. Had to heavily apply the after sun anyway, but we're all good. Um, Following on from a couple of days ago when we discussed the first proposed 11 for the team to play South Africa A. We had a few people responding and mentioning, oh, why he not played, or we thought he was going to play and stuff like that, which is great, and we really do appreciate the comments and people discussing who they suspect should be in and should and shouldn't, etc., which is great. But we'll go into this 11 now, and we'll discuss the reasons why you've gone with this 11. And hopefully some of the names that people have mentioned feature in this 11. If not, then it's just our opinion and in your expert knowledge, really, as well, really, Kyron. So
Mhm.
the 11 for the second test versus South Africa A, you've gone with openers Michael Louis and Johan Jeremiah, with Kevin Hodge at three, Shakir Paris at four, Justin Greaves at five, Kevin Wickham at six, Jamar Hamilton with the gloves at seven, Matthew Ford at eight, Joshua Bishop at nine, Kenneth Denver at 10, and Shamar Joseph at 11. So similar balance to the first one, in my opinion, where you've got that experience and then obviously some youth in there from off the back of the West Indies Championship. But going into your openers, talk me through why you've gone with them two.
Um, so Mikhail Louis to start off with, obviously he was, I guess, the most recent opening batsman that would have played for the West Indies along with Craig Brathwaite. Had an okay season, probably not the season he would have wanted. Especially towards the end, we saw, I guess, him get out similarly to, I guess, ways in which he would have been dismissed in international cricket, sort of, I guess, hanging the ball wider from him, sort of fifth, sixth stump line, driving and getting out caught behind. I personally think that's down to him, I guess, not understanding where his stumps are and
Right,
playing at
okay.
balls that he really shouldn't be playing at for the sole purpose of him batting on the wrong guard. This is
Right, okay.
something that I've mentioned to him before. If you're gonna bat an off stump guard, then anything outside of your right eye,
Yeah,
as a right-handed batsman, you should technically be leaving alone because if you're batting an off stump, you can't still be looking to hit the ball through the offside. That means that if you're batting an off stump, you technically should be looking to hit the ball straight down the ground or through the leg side. So you're trying to force bowlers to bowl straight at you, a la a Steve Smith with a big
yeah,
jump across,
yeah,
and whipping those balls through the leg side. If you're looking to open up the offside, what you generally see people do, especially in limited overs cricket, is stay leg side of the ball so
yeah.
that they can access the offside. You can't be that far across and still trying to hit the ball through the offside. So I think that's something that hopefully, he tries out, becomes comfortable with, um, and takes it from there. But again, that's solely down to him to make that change. That's not for me to do. But I think that in terms of selection
Yeah.
for this match, as I said, an okay season. He was the most recent opener for the West Indies team. He was sort of in and around the same amount of runs as the other openers that would have featured this season. And so I think as the incumbent opener, he deserves an opportunity to stake a claim for his for to retain his spot.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's someone now that's played 9, 10 test matches. Um, so I think that the returns that people are going to be looking for are not going to be slim. It's gonna ask for a level of consistency now.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously coming up against Australia, at the best of times isn't an easy task, but coming up against this Australian bowling attack, and this Australian team, the number one team in the world, is going to ask for a lot technically, tactically, physically,
Yeah.
mentally. So I think South Africa is probably a good preparation in that sense, in terms of exposure to like for like fast bowling,
Yeah.
playing those matches in St. Lucia. That's a steamer friendly pitch, and testing, I guess, the techniques of the batters on show. Because if you are able to score runs there, then it should translate well into Test cricket. Mind you, having said that, these are a completely different level of skilled bowlers that we're talking about. We're talking about a
Yeah.
bowling unit that has over 1,500 wickets between them.
Yeah.
Probably the
Yeah.
most dominant bowling attack in the world when you look at man for man, just the volume of wickets that they have.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be easy, but in terms of preparation, you couldn't ask for anything better. So I think that
No.
this is a good step and a good opportunity for Mikhail Louis to go and perform and showcase his ability as to why he should retain his spot.
Yeah, and I think following on from the the initial pod where we discussed the first test 11, if they're going to go with something similar to this with John Campbell and Cephas Cooper, you want him to have that opportunity to go and do that as well. Because he hasn't scored, the volume of runs that them two did at opening the batting. So he deserves his opportunity to go, yeah, I haven't had the season that I'm probably looking for, but I'm still what I see myself as a number one opener, in the Caribbean, and this is what I'm going to go and do. So yeah, I totally agree with that selection. He deserves a chance to go and, put his case forward again.
Indeed, something similar to what you sort of mentioned with Alec Athens
Yeah,
a
yeah,
few days ago as well. Someone that hasn't scored the volume of runs, but is in the team or has been in the most recent team selected and played,
yeah.
and so gets another opportunity to stake a claim.
Yeah, definitely. And then, yeah, Johan, yeah, Jeremiah as well at opening with him. He's had a good season. He's been good.
Had a very good season. Obviously, got to see it firsthand.
Yep.
I think that it's a pity for him. He's really trying to get past that 500 run mark.
Yeah.
Needed I guess 5 runs in his last innings or something, and got out quite early. But barring that, obviously having to captain the CCC team, which is not an easy task.
No.
Um, it's not. It's the only team in the competition that's not an actual regional franchise. Even the academy guys are together day in day out working on their games. So to have to do that with a bunch of guys that just get put together a few days before and then still come off the field and have to go right back and open the batting, I think that he did a commendable job, because obviously it takes a lot of mental fortitude to be able to do and balance both things the way he has. Obviously, a relatively young guy as well, mid 20s, and so you want to expose him just like Cephas Cooper
Yeah,
to a higher level of cricket and reward them for their performances and
that's it.
see, I guess, what he has in terms of ability to cope with a higher level or a higher standard of more consistent bowling.
Yeah, and I think with, like we mentioned there, you are rewarding, but there is, you know, as a whole, there is a question marks over this opening pair, who it could be and stuff like that. So by giving this opportunity, he might take it by both, with both hands, and he might thrive on that sort of opportunities, which is something that the reason why you're discussing this is so it could give people this, opportunity to go and take it with both hands, and that's what we want to see. Um, at number three, I was surprised you went with this. So you're going with Kevin Hodge at three. And I'm interested to see your thoughts with that.
I think it's an interesting one, Kavim Hodge. As I said in the last episode as well, I think that when Ami Jangu played in that second test match and was put to bat at number three, I think Kavim Hodge should have been put up the order to
Yeah,
bat at number three, because that's what he does in regional cricket and has been doing for some time as well. Um, he's someone that I think is in a bit of a tricky situation because he scored that century in England. He scored a half century against Bangladesh in the Caribbean, but then obviously in Pakistan, everyone had a torrid time.
yeah,
And so you ask guys to come back to regional cricket and perform. I think Haji sort of blew a bit hot and cold where he got 100. I know he got run out for 99 trying to get a quick single.
Yeah.
Um, but between those scores, there wasn't sort of any other scores of significance, and that would be something that he'd be disappointed in because he's a guy that works very hard on his game and is very passionate about his craft. So I think that you know, for me with Hodge, it's sort of again along the lines of an Alec Athena's situation where he has scored some level of runs. For the West Indies, I guess, in two of
Yeah.
their past three series. How do you, I guess, value that from a selection standpoint, based on the fact that I guess the last series he didn't obviously score many runs, and then
No.
in the regional season he didn't necessarily dominate. So I think that's where he gets into this match and gets another opportunity to show that okay, I may have had a lean series against Pakistan and a lean regional tournament, but don't forget that 2 series ago, 3 series ago, I was able to get some scores
Yeah.
and put up some level of a resistance because I mean it would kind of be unfair to drop a Hodge, for example, and keep an Athens when I think Hodge has a higher average at this point and has a test century already.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a balancing effect where you sort of go with both or none. And I think that he deserves an opportunity at least in an A team series to stake a claim for himself.
Yeah. I think that he will play in the first test against Australia. And I think that, it's been tough for him in the 4-day regional stuff because I think the Windward Islands just haven't performed at all, and it was tough. We had that crazy scorecard against Trinidad where we had the 126 and they were bowled out for 180 or whatever. And so there's a lot of pluses from that because the fact you go and get a century and you dig in and you show that grit and determination to do that. So there were positives there. I just don't think he was backed up consistently enough, from his teammates in those situations, which has probably left him, you know, maybe doing certain things that he probably wouldn't like to do from a batting perspective. I'm just speaking off the cuff a little bit with that. Um, but he I think yeah, I do see what you mentioned there about the point of his situation. I think what he would benefit from would be the game time again. So another 2 times to bat. I think that'll be a big benefit for him more so than, he's not for me, he's not necessarily having to score runs to play in the 11 against Australia because I think I do think he's probably going to feature, depending on again, loads of things we'll probably discuss in the next few weeks. But I think that ultimately, for him to bat twice before Australia would be a big benefit to him. And so following him, you've gone with Shakir Paris, another one who you've been playing with as well.
Yep. I think that he's someone of immense talent. I'm not sure how he can't get into a Barbados team or the West Indies Academy, being only 21. I think that he's someone that would benefit a lot from being in a formal or structured environment,
Yeah,
set training times, set gym sessions, etc., etc. His ability, someone actually saw first last year during the CPL when I saw him hit Henrik Nokia over cover for six. I was like, okay,
oh, he can play.
this guy, this guy can play. I mean, there's not many people that hit the ball over cover for six. And I mean, he sort of reminds me of two former languid, classy right-hand West Indians in Carl Hooper and Marlon Samuels. He sort of has, I guess, that vein of ability, like that's those sorts of mannerisms, and he is probably as equally as talented as either of those two guys as well. And I think he just needs an opportunity. I mean, I was very happy to see that he chose to play the 50 over regional tournament last year. Obviously got a few half centuries, didn't get a century. Started this 4-day season well. I mean, again, happy to see that he chose to play red ball cricket as well,
Yeah,
because I know that he had some franchise opportunities, but he turned down because he wanted to focus on trying to make the West Indies team. And these are things that people
yeah,
don't know or
yeah,
give give these young players in particular
Correct.
credit for,
Yeah.
because they think it's all a money grab. But
Yeah.
this is
Correct.
a guy that, has turned down opportunities to put himself forward to potentially have an opportunity to play for the West Indies. Now, obviously, all of that is dependent on performance.
Yeah.
And, in the last two games of the season, after a good start and a slow middle, it really clicked for him where he, in the last two games, scored 300 and, is it 300? He scored just around 300 and something runs, just over 300 runs in the last two games. So, that's what you're looking for from these young players. He got his maiden first class century, and generally when I'm playing with guys and the young batters, once they get a maiden first class century, they get a bat.
Yeah.
So he's already reminded me of that as soon as he came off the field, because I was pressuring him all season about if he's going to let me die without seeing him make a century. So I was very, very happy and pleased for him that he got that century, especially being his first season.
Yeah.
But I think that he's someone that, for me, I think I can group him, a Joel Andrew, a Kevlin Anderson, and a Kevin Wickham together as four guys that I think could form the crux of a middle order for the West Indies for some time to come.
Yeah.
Those guys are extremely talented, all young players and all performing well already at the regional level. So I think,
Yeah.
to have them as, I guess, a group of guys that you keep together from a batting perspective and groom and teach them how to play with each other, how to build partnerships amongst each other. I think that could only benefit West Indies cricket going forward. So very happy for Shakir Paris, and hopefully, if given the opportunity, he continues to do well, because I think that he's someone with immense talent and should be invested into heavily.
Yeah. I think to when we mentioned this before when we spoke about one of the team of the weeks. You spoke so highly of him, but to follow up with what you mentioned there about turning down franchise opportunities to focus on representing the West Indies is something that, like you said, people probably automatically assume that the heads are going to be turned financially. But when you're speaking of a player like him, when you're comparing him to the Marlon Samuels and the Carl Hoopers, and he's got this what seems to be a very mature head on his shoulders, and he's extremely focused on what he wants to achieve. The opportunities that will come off that is fantastic. And that's one thing that, you mentioned there about Jules Andrew, and obviously you've been around him. They're extremely mature for their age. They're extremely focused in terms of what they want to achieve. And I think it's a real credit to them individually, but also the people around who are helping, and guiding, because like you said, naturally from the outside perspective, everyone just assumes that your head's turned financially, and it's like, well, I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to go and do that because I can get X and I can go and get Y there. Credit where credit's due when you're mentioning things like that.
Indeed, because again, you're talking about, like all of us, most young guys coming up in the cricketing world. You're trying to establish yourself, and you get an opportunity to make some money that can change your position and your family's position. So to turn down that for, I guess, a long-term vision
Yeah.
for yourself is quite commendable, especially at such a young age. I'm 21 years old.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, and then number five, you've gone with Justin Greaves, who finished the season, strongly.
Justin Graves played four games, got two centuries and one half century, and towards the end of the season did quite a bit of bowling as well, which I'm happy to see, because um, for me, he plays as the all-rounder in the first test of the season, because I think he adds a nice balance, giving a fourth seam option um, to what I've already stated would be my three fast bowling unit for the West Indies team. His batting has obviously definitely come on a lot,
Yeah.
scoring centuries for fun now at the regional level, and that's what you want to see when you have someone going out, getting the opportunity at international level, and then coming back to regional cricket. This is what we asked for,
You asked them.
and chipping in with two wickets. That's all you really need from him. You don't need him to be getting 4 wicket hauls. If he can give you 10 to 12 overs in a day, that's realistically, that's just 4 overs a session. Um, you're very happy with that. So no, very, very pleased with Justin's performance. I don't think that there's much that we really need to say
No.
about him. His performances really speak for themselves. And I think that, he's at that sweet spot in life in terms of his age and his maturity, and optimal performance. I think he's at that stage where he understands his game now. Very smart worker, very hard worker, and now obviously a very consistent player as well.
Yeah. No, I think what you were saying there, there's nothing much more to say, in terms of that. So, fair play to him, and hopefully he continues his good form. And then at number 6, you've got Kevin Wickham.
Yep. A lot of people would think that, for example, a Jonathan Drakes should have been in this position. And whilst I can understand that immediate term, I think for me, the reason why Jonathan Drakes would have missed out is obviously had a very strong start to the season, but tapered off very badly after the ball change. And for me, you've heard me talk about Kevin Wickham for
Yeah.
some time extensively, and I think that what's impressive about Kevin Wickham is that he literally does everything on the cricket field apart from umpire or be the bails. He's literally the handyman. Like you want a spinner, he can bowl leg spin or off spin. He bowls medium pace. He keeps wicket. He bats. I think that um, from the young batters in the Caribbean, it's obviously for me between him and Joel Andrew in terms of the most versatile playing across red ball and white ball formats. Kevin Wickham had a relatively good 50 over tournament as well. Um, but for me, I mean, people think that failure is a bad thing, especially for these young guys. I think failure is a very good thing because
Yeah.
he's had a good season before. Now he's had a bad season, so now he'll learn a lot more about his game at a
Yeah.
younger age than a lot of players just coming in and being successful and
Yeah.
then facing their first failure on the international stage and not knowing how to deal with it. So I expect a big season from Kevin Wickham next season as well, coming off of this failure and understanding what he needs to work on.
Yeah.
And he's a very hardworking guy, talented guy. I've got the world of time for him. I think that, um, even in failure, there are opportunities for guys that you identify with talent to continue to grow and be exposed to higher levels of cricket because thinking long term, these are the guys that we pretty much know should be or would be playing for the West Indies in the future. And so you want to continue to mold them and look after them and enable them to understand that we're supporting you, whether you do good or you do bad. You've got our backing,
Yeah.
and you can just go and play because that level of freedom as well brings out a higher level of performance from guys across the board.
Yeah, definitely. I think the comment you mentioned there about failure being a good thing at times, it is when you have that failure, but you have that work ethic and you have that mental sort of drive to figure things out from a technical perspective, whether that be from a batting or a bowling side of things, it can really help you and it takes you to that next level because you're understanding more about your game. And then when you go into playing the high level, whether it be an international or whatever standard you're playing at, you learn more from within yourself as well about handling those situations. So I think that when you're talking about this young group of players, about how they are mentality wise, they are going to go through passages of your career where you dip in form. It's natural, like I mentioned last week. But when you have that determination and focus, you will find a way because you've got the ability and you've got good people around you as well. You will find a way and you'll be better off the back of it. So yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying about Kevin Wickham, and it's promising. We've mentioned names here over we're halfway through this side and the previous 11, and also the team of the weeks we've been doing. There's a lot of promise coming through the Caribbean, which is great.
I think that there's loads of young talent, and I mean, obviously, these are just guys that we've seen at
Yeah,
this level. There's a lot of young guys that we still haven't seen.
yeah,
Hence the breakout league that starts tomorrow.
yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And then at number 7, the Gloveman, you've gone with Jamal Hamilton.
Yeah, I think just off of sheer weight of runs. I mean, obviously, my only one complaint about Jamal Hamilton doesn't get
Nope.
centuries. He seems to give it away every time he gets to 80 and 90. Um, but once he sort of gets over, I guess, that hump, that hurdle, there's not too much other things that you can complain about with Jamal Hamilton. He's energetic guy. Um, I think the best wicket keeper in the Caribbean. We're talking just the
Yeah.
gloves alone. This year he's had, I guess, a very good year. For me, for the first time from since 2018. So very happy for him that he's managed to get through that patch, um, and have such a good season. And not only just in 40th season, he had a very good 50 over season as well, where the Leeward Islands obviously got knocked out in the semifinals, but he scored quite heavily there as well for them, coming in down the order. So no, I think he should be rewarded for his performances. And I know obviously a lot of people are going to say, well, I mean, you've selected Tevin Imlach in one team. People may have been expecting Joshua De Silva in this team, but I just think for me, Joshua De Silva now at this point is past 18 cricket. He's already got some 30 odd test matches. So he's someone that you're not necessarily looking to see in an A team setting anymore. And that's I guess my vantage point on that.
But from Joshua's point of view, would it leave him potentially further down the pecking order if the three people that we've picked in both of these sides was to score big? Would it leave him naturally in that further down the pecking order?
Not for me because I have a clear plan or a clear vision in terms of who would be in my, I guess, preparation camp.
Yeah, which we
And I guess
both have
that's
discussed.
probably, yeah, that's probably the next thing that we'll do. We'll announce our squad for the
Yeah.
preparation camp for the Australia series. And Joshua De Silva features in that. There's no, let's not try and keep that a secret, because I mean, I don't think, for me, I think that I'm going to continue to develop Joel Andrews. So I'm just giving him exposure here. It's not about him vying for a place in Test cricket. And competition for places is good. This is what we want. The opening spot has got lots of competition for places now. So there's a wicket keeping spot, and there's no reason to say that
No.
someone can't make the team or a few of them can't make the team as, I don't know, batters. So no, I'm very happy with that.
And then at number eight, and this obviously people did mention this in the comments, and I mentioned at the start, we do really appreciate, your comments and your thoughts. Matthew Ford.
Indeed, I think that Matthew Ford is a very good cricketer. I like Matthew Ford. Um, his he has something about him where you can see a level of fight, like a level of determination. Like he likes big moments.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Not extremely fast, not extremely big. He's not a guy that's going to hit the ball out of the ground, like a Pollard, for example, a Russell. But he
Yeah,
seems to be a very street smart cricketer. Um, and he's like someone that you can put into any situation. He sort of reminds me of a Roston Chase, and he'll
right.
find a way. You look at what he did towards the end of the season, where he wasn't necessarily getting as many wickets, but then he started to really show his value with the bat, and that's what you're looking for from an all-round cricketer. You're not able to contribute on one side, but then you contribute on the other side of the ball. So you know, I think Matthew Ford is someone that, I mean, he's only 22 years old,
Yeah,
and I think this is his first season of red ball cricket. So he's someone that I'd like to develop and
yeah,
see
yeah.
what can we get from a Matthew Ford?
Yeah.
What could this be? Because we've seen him in
What's that ceiling?
50 over cricket, 20 over cricket. We've seen him now in 40 cricket, and we know that given the opportunity to have an extended innings, he's capable of scoring centuries as he did and scoring big runs as well as stringing the ball around, which you'll get a lot more of consistently with the red ball. So,
Yeah,
no, I like Matthew Ford, and I hope that he gets an opportunity in some way, shape, or form to continue to develop his overall game, which will help um, West Indies with him playing limited overs cricket as well. Because I think that 40 cricket is sort of where you learn to play all formats of the game because you've got every facet of a cricket match in a 4-day match. You think about setting up a game in the first innings, it's a bit slow. Things start speeding up through the middle, and then towards the end in a run chase, you have to use different skills, whether it be, you're coming into your Yorkers, your slower balls, bowling wide, trying to defend and, setting different fields. So you get every aspect of cricket through 40 games.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be very good for our white ball players if they could play a bit more of 40 cricket.
Yeah. No, can't, nothing more to add with that. Yeah, that made sense, and he fully deserved his players because, like you said, he's had a good season. So at number 9, and we're into the spinners now. So you're going with Joshua Bishop.
Again, another young man that I have the world of time for. I think that, thankfully there's a West Indies Academy.
Mm.
Again, I said previously, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because I think there's an age barrier in terms of guys being in the academy of, I think 24 is the max. But he's someone that, along with those 4 young batters that I mentioned, if you're grouping players together, I think he's someone that fits into that group as well. So he would be the
Yeah.
spin bowler for that generation of players that you want to continue to develop and mold for West Indies. Um, Very useful cricketer, good fielder, and averages over 30 with the bat in first class cricket with 2 first class centuries. So, you know, I think Joshua Bishop is one for the not too distant future. Um, and I'm very happy with his, I guess, progress over the last 2 seasons. He's starting to understand his game, how to get wickets, how to control one end, how to restrict scoring, because obviously he's the more experienced player in that team and he's had to do a lot of bowling. So
Yeah.
obviously his game would have developed a lot quicker. And for him to have any level of success and for that team to have any level of success, he would have had to be um, bowling well, getting wickets. So very happy with him.
Yeah. And not being too shabby with the bat, to be fair. He's, fair play to him.
Indeed.
And then Kenneth Denver at 10.
I think he's someone that's probably gone a bit under the radar, and lots of people may not realize that he's gotten 2 to 3 5 wicket hauls this season,
Yeah.
as well as scoring some very valuable runs with the bat. So I think Kenneth Demba is someone that should be given an opportunity because you look at the teams that have selected, most of the successful spinners this season have been left arm spinners, and he
Yeah.
offers that variety being an off break bowler. Um, and I think that obviously, teams like to have both options available to them with someone spinning the ball into and someone spinning the ball away. So you always have a threat to the outside edge. Um, but I think that Kenneth Demba, has quietly gone under the radar. And I think that if you really study the game and look at performances of guys throughout the season, um, just like Joshua De Silva, Raheem Cornwall is not someone I'm going to be picking in an A-team series because I already know what he can do. So
Yeah.
to expose a new player like a Kenneth Demba is of utmost importance to me to continue to build and widen the talent pool.
Yeah, and what I would say as well is that the way you've broken down these 11s, and same with the team of the week when you're doing those, is you've not just put in 11 players on the team sheet. This is balance, and you've gone with the openers you mentioned about having last week, earlier in the week. Sorry, you mentioned about having a right and a left hander, and it's in you've gone with it again in this side. You've got your off spinner, so your left arm off spinning, and your orthodox. This is well thought out, and you've got the balance in here. So I think it's good, and like you mentioned in there, Raheem Cornwall, you know exactly what you can do. Let's have a look at somebody else. Let's see what he's like when we try and push him to that next level. And then at number 11, you've gone with Shamar Joseph, which I was interested about really because he's not played much.
Indeed, and that's why he sort of features in my second A team, specifically in the second A team for a reason as well, because that will obviously be a week closer to whenever the
Yeah,
test match starts as opposed to the first game. I want to give him a run out St. Lucia is a very good place for fast bowling, very lovely wicket. And someone coming off of shin splints and missing the back half of the 40 season, as well as going down to the IPL and not
Yeah,
getting much playing time, probably doing a lot of work in the nets, but not getting much playing time. So to come back into the longer format of the game with, I guess, not much game time behind you, it's going to be quite testing. So it's important that he goes on to play some meaningful red ball cricket before a preparation camp so that you know
yeah,
where he stands and you can start building him up accordingly.
yeah, definitely. I think we can discuss that in more. Um, when we discuss this camp and stuff, because you're going to want to see, you need to see different bits and pieces like that. But like that is a solid 11. And over the next couple of weeks, well, next week we'll discuss your big plan in terms of the training camp and the full squad and what you like to see, which I think is really, really interested. I'm very fortunate that you shared that with me, but I'd be really excited for everybody to understand and the thoughts behind the plan and things, and the deep level of detail that you've gone into is genuinely brilliant.
Yeah, and I just think from a player's perspective, these are things that are needed, and so these are things that I'll put forward, and hopefully the viewing public and probably anyone at CW that
Yeah.
sees this likes it and tries to implement something.
No, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Kai. And like I said previously, let us know your comments and what you think, because we're interested and we like to hear it. So thank you very much. Cheers, Kai.
Cheers, John.